Hello, my name is Bobby Luck, and I am a visual artist. I've been doing this now for about 10
If I
years.
were a hermaphrodite.
Oh, Jesus.
I had this piece in mind for like the past like 4 years or so that where I wanted to really like hone in these moments of isolation that happen in sitcoms to like kind of
What did I do now?
show people in the sitcoms are thinking and experiencing something in a really heavy and dramatic way where they like zoom in and like have the music swell and it causes the emotion of the actor to be the emotion of the viewer as well. The piece is called Draped-Mania, and Draped-Mania it's this like pseudoscience diagnosis that this crock of a doctor made up to explain why runaway slaves run away. Because, like, it couldn't possibly be because they're being treated poorly. So I think that his idea was to just, like, kind of like create this uh, outlet for his cognitive dissonance to explain why people would want to leave a situation like that in the first place. One of the things that I realized when I was editing this film is that like a lot of those moments are few and far between, and a lot of them were imagined by myself when I was a kid when I was watching them. So it was really fun taking all of these sitcoms that I grew up with that taught me a lot about in my own isolation as a child who grew up in the mountains, like pretty far away from a lot of other Black people. They taught me a lot about Black culture, like be it good or bad, the way that it was taught to me because a lot of times in sitcoms things kind of just like are the way that the writers see it and not the way that people actually experience them. And the people in writing rooms in sitcoms, especially Black sitcoms, often weren't Black people. I was thinking about the isolation that happens with Black people in general when it comes to like being isolated from other people in our communities by being stuck in ghettos or not having the financial stability to travel and see other people from the country in which we came from, not knowing what countries we came from, not being able to communicate with people in other cities in general. And I think that one of the ways that we get to bust through that kind of sheltering is through media. Media is like ever prevalent now. It's all over the place. And I think that it's like really helpful that we have a way to communicate with each other now, especially in quarantine, because like otherwise we would just be like separated from our personhood and ourselves. I think that another thing that I noticed while I was making the piece was that like isolation has always been a thing with humanity. It's like always been something we've had to struggle with for different reasons. And so I was thinking a lot about my ancestors and the ways that they had struggled with isolation in the past, isolation from like their home countries, and isolation from other people within their community. A lot of times they only ever saw the people on the plantation, and that's all they saw their whole lives. And I was thinking about my isolation in quarantine and how I can like kind of like revel in this like freedom that there is in the isolation that happens now versus the isolation that happened when we didn't have more forms of media to communicate with each other. And I was like, what if there is a way that I could make some sort of media format that could like time travel to them and give them a message that they're not alone and they're not as isolated as they think they are. And I was like, what would that media form look like? So I was thinking about just like isolation across the board when it came to like being a person in general, when it comes to sickness, what happened with the Spanish flu, the AIDS epidemic in the 80s, where people were super isolated from their loved ones because
If I
people
were
didn't
a
understand the disease and
hermaphrodite.
were like afraid to come into
Have you ever
contact with
forgotten
them.
someone you slept with?
So I gathered a lot of media that was influenced by these moments in history where we've all been isolated, and I gathered them together to like create this like love letter for my ancestors who had like the ultimate isolation, where they didn't have any way to read or any technology to like communicate with each other in a real way.
So what's your number?
1 875
2
875
3
0098.
70